Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate the invite to come here and be a part of this. So I just ever so briefly, we all know that we can go a minute or two, right, without air. We got to breathe. We can go the 2 weeks without, or a couple days without water, and we can go 2 weeks without food, all those things. I just want to talk a little bit about mindset. The whole food thing, that's a lie. So throw that one out. There's not one of us here that can't go 2 months without food. I know this because I've almost gone that long, okay? You can do it. You're gonna be slow, sluggish, miserable, maybe for the first couple of days. But trust me, in a week or two, and the concept of being that long without food is not far-fetched. Please understand that. It is not far-fetched. In fact, if things do go south, it is probably more of a likelihood than it is the exception, okay? But you all can do it. Everybody here can do it. The water obviously is key. There's no cheating water. We don't store water, but we do store calories. And again, even the thinnest one of us here can go 2 months without food. You're not going to be Superman, but I guarantee you, after a week, your energy will come back. You'll actually start feeling better as your body transitions to burning fat, and you'll actually feel better. Your brain will work better. All that brain fog of not having food will go away, and you'll actually be sharper than you went into this situation. I say that because most of us will never experience it. Let's hope, right? But survival, getting on the wrong side of the survival curve is very easy. We've all become a little accustomed, shall we say, to all the luxuries of life, and they can disappear. For those of you that actually know me, I worked overseas for the military, for the government, for three-letter agencies. I've gone a long time without food. I've suffered all the fun that you can have in a survival situation, and it can all be overcome. They're really, we're so powerful of a creature. You have no idea. I don't know how far I can go. I know how far I've gone, but I've never been in a situation where I couldn't dig a little deeper and, keep going. That knowledge, though, came from practicing. It came from being taught. It came from simple hip pocket talks like this from people who have been there and done that. So just another thing you need to put out there. Obviously, you need to practice things, start going a day without food. I know, again, as Americans, we're like, whoa, what the heck? Why should I do something like that? Well, it's a valuable tool. Anytime you can teach yourself something, it's a valuable tool. And once you conquer that day, you'll be able to conquer 2 days. 3 days is where most of us test our mettle. But once you get past those things, again, you'd be surprised. Our bodies were designed to go days without food. Don't fall into this concept of, oh, you need to eat a hearty breakfast every day. You need to take a break in the middle of the day and eat lunch. Oh, before you go to bed, you should eat dinner because your body needs all this nutrition to keep itself healthy overnight. You can go so much further. Again, our bodies were designed for this. We've fallen into, again, the mainstream in so many ways, and this is another one of them. They tell you you're weak. They tell you you need this. You need grocery stores. You need all these things, and tell you, self-survival is so possible. It can be done on the most austere situations. And again, mindset is one of the keys. So all these things we talk about here, I know everybody said it, get out and practice it. You really do, but you need to practice the whole mental game just as much. And I know we don't always have time to get out and practice these skills, but one of the things that's overlooked tremendously is thinking through the process of a skill. Once you've done it once or twice, and you don't have time to keep doing it every month, if you think through the skill on a regular basis, you'd be surprised at how well that'll stick in once you've done it a couple of times. once you have the steps down, just run through the mental process of these things, and it can save you a ton of time by not having to get your stuff out every time. You know, the whole fire starting, this step, that step, this step. In an emergency situation, it's so easy to forget those steps, but we all have a limited amount of time. It's hard to get out and practice that every time, but I'll tell you what, once a week, you just, you know what, it's the process again. Okay, I'm gonna need this, I'm gonna need this, I'm gonna need this. Wanna have it all close hand, and then I do this, I do this, I do this. Same thing with the radios, same thing with first aid, same thing with being aware, security situations, just having situational awareness. Most of us maybe have heard about, you walk into a restaurant, look for where the exit is. All these little things, look where people could come in. Sit in the right place, put your back towards the avenue of least likely approach of a bad guy. All these things, practice them every day. And again, even if you can only do it in your head, it is so valuable. Our number one tool is right here. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. I'm sure you all know that already if you've been doing this a while. But you got to exercise that tool and just understand that it can be a great complement and a substitution for getting out and doing all these skills firsthand as often as you should. That's all I got to say right now.
I got a comment here. So that is really good, really good. How do we prepare our mind? So we're programmed this way. How do we prepare our mind to practice that? How do we get in our mind that we can survive? And it's the panic that comes in, right?
Right.
The anxiety that comes in that drives us to death because
Okay.
we're doing the wrong thing.
So it's like anything else. We all know, and there's arguments about how many times it takes to learn a physical skill. 2,500 repetitions, 5,000. 10,000 seems to be one of the golden numbers that people throw around. So you do something 10,000 times, that means you don't have to think about it anymore. Same thing with this. I've thought about, it's just because the way I am, I've thought about drawing my handgun and doing things far more than 10,000 times. One day, years ago here in San Antonio, I lived just north of downtown in a historical district. I'm walking my dogs at 3 in the morning because one of them was sick, and I come up to my house and there's a guy breaking into my house. And I'm like, what the? I mean, I'm right here and this guy's breaking into my house. Because I've rehearsed these types of things so many times, in an instant, I had 2 dogs with me. I transferred them both to my left hand, pulled up, weapon came out, and was just, I didn't even think about it. And while I'm looking at this guy, I instantly did what I have trained my mind to do. And I was like, 5'8", 5'10", 160, 180 pounds, maroon cap, boom, boom, boom. And I'm just running and I'm repeating these things through my head. And eventually I had to repeat that to the policemen that came. And they caught him an hour later and I got to go identify him. But any of these things, mental, just, you got to run through, you got to understand, we're all responsible for self-rescue. Quit thinking you're going to dial 911 when something happens. Don't put any of this off on anybody else, not even your mutual assistance group. But you can easily get started by just the mental exercise. The mental exercise and running through, we call it game playing, but that's what it is. You're just running the game through in your head. Hey, if I had to start a fire right now, how would I do it? What do I got? Am I prepared? Sometimes you may find yourself unprepared. You're going to have to look for alternative ways to accomplish any of the tasks that you want to learn. But again, just mental, just run it through, war game it, however you want to call it. But that's why they have those war games. That's how you get it.
Giving yourself time to process.
Yeah, because if you're not doing it now, you're going to have to make it.
And someone brought up the series 299 Days. That is a great way, because we all know we don't know what we don't know. That book series, and there's others, but to me that was a really good one because it was a real long series of books. That gives you a lot of things to think about that you may not, be aware of or even thought of. So those types of resources, obviously groups like this, a great resource for that. And identify your weak spots, write that outline. Look at, you're watching movies, you watch the news, you see what happens to people and you're like, what would I have done? And there's plenty of examples out there what not to do, but you rarely hear people on the news or in a lot of situations talk about, well, what would they have done? What would have been a better way to, affect a positive outcome instead of a negative one? Yeah.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So stand up so we can Yeah. So
It's a tough crowd.
high performance athletes, you see this a lot in you really notice it like in track and field. They teach these athletes what's called visualization, and they run that race before they ever get into the blocks in their head. And the thing about when you run that race, you don't run it with seeing yourself tripping at the finish line. You run the perfect race in your head. And they do that over and over. And there was a POW in Vietnam that they actually did a study on, and he had been a POW for 7 years. And to keep his sanity, every day he played 19 holes of golf in his head. And you play 19, like again, you don't play with mistakes. Well, the first thing he did when he got debriefed is he went to play golf, and he played the best game of golf in his life, and he hadn't picked up a club in 7 years. So there's a lot to the going through the mental part and the mental game for that. So
That was a very good presentation. Thank you.